Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Monday, Wavemakers family. For those of you who are new, we are the Wavemakers, and Nick and I are here to bring y'all some fire tonight on mindset, as always.
Yes.
The Wavemakers, we are here to make positive waves of change for ourselves, our community, and the world. And we all know that it starts with us. So that's what we're here to do tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Princess. And this is a very important topic tonight, guys. So drop a 33 in the chat if some of you guys are, hold on. If you believe that your past does not determine your future. Yeah, I've heard that too. But I'm going to throw you guys a curveball. You ready for this? Your past does determine your future. Unless you rewrite the story. Your past, I'm going to tell you guys, your past will determine your future unless you rewrite the story. What do you mean? What do you mean, Nick? What do you mean?
In call now.
Right.
Love it.
See, our perception determines our reality. Perception is not reality, but perception does determine our reality, okay? So our past does not determine our future, but the past will determine the future unless we rewrite the story, because we're living from the lenses of what we have experienced in our past. You guys agree with me? So let's look at a couple of quotes real quick, and then we're going to dive into the meat and potatoes, the vegan meat and potatoes of what we have here tonight.
How many of you have heard or has someone say to you, like, perception is reality? Drop a 3 if you've heard that. I know for me, my dad literally lived by that quote growing up, perception's reality. And I'm like, no, it's not. But now I get what he means. It's not reality, like Nick says. But is the person's reality, their perception of me is the reality. So what does perception start with? What does everything start with? Everything starts with our thoughts, right? Our life starts with our thoughts. Our thoughts equal our perception. So the way I think about something is how I'm perceiving it. Mm-hmm. If I think the sky's blue, then it's blue. If I'm saying it's a different color, that's how I'm perceiving it. He could think something totally different, right? It starts with our thoughts. If you change your thoughts, what comes after that?
Perception.
Perception. What is your perception compounded? What does that create? Your reality. And then your reality goes to your future. So if you start by just changing your thoughts, that's where it really starts. You change your thoughts, you change your perception, you change your reality, and that's how you'll be able to change your future, but it starts in here.
You guys already knew this, right? Of course. It's all innate in us. We all know this. So let's dive in a little bit deeper right now, okay? Because I think that there's many of us right here in this call that are living in the present based on what happened in our past. And so if we want a different present, which will then become our future, the today of a minute ago is already my past, right? So if we want to change it now so we can change the future, we must go back and change our stories. So here's my question to you. And this is where we're going to dive in, and we're going to actually take a few minutes, and we're going to write it down ourselves, okay? If you're in a position to write it down, do this with us, okay? What is a story? Here's the question. What is a story that I keep telling myself? What is a story that I keep telling myself that is limiting me? What is a story that I keep telling myself that is limiting me? And by the way, that story can be a conscious story or a subconscious story. And a subconscious story. What is that story for you? And you can drop it in the chat if you want. You don't have to though. What story is holding me back? Absolutely. That's another way to put it. Thank you.
And how do we know if a story is holding us back? Like how do we know what to look for right now when we're digging deeper in this question? Our feelings are those indicators. We follow our feelings.
Yes.
So if we're going back and we're thinking of something, what you're really looking for is, what does it make me feel good? What do I keep believing? What do I keep perceiving that does not make me feel good?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a belief about your relationships, like your actual like significant other, your family members, business partners, your career, even just an incident that happened like yesterday. Does it make you feel bad? Well, what is your perception of that? What is that story that you're telling yourself?
That's right. That's absolutely right. The feeling is the indicator. The feeling is the indicator, whether that story is serving you or is limiting you. And we all have them. So before you throw it, think that this call is not valuable to you, I promise it is. We all have them. And I want to get vulnerable with you guys for a second here, if that's okay with you guys. Is that okay? And I want to tell you guys a story as an example that I've told myself many, many years ago consciously, and then it became a subconscious pattern in my entire life that drove everything that I did. And I realized this story recently that it was time for me to recreate that story. Here's the story. When I was 2 years old, my dad left my life. Clearly, I wasn't that valuable in his life. That's why he left me. And I continue to see the same pattern happening in my mom because she raised me. And although she loved me, I was never good enough. I was never good enough because she had such high standards for me, and she was never satisfied with what I did. And that's why I am the way I am. That's why X, Y, and Z. That's why that was the story that I told my entire life. My dad left me. My mom did the best she could, but guess what? She tried to be the mom and the dad, but she couldn't be. So, she really held me to standards that I couldn't fulfill, and therefore I wasn't good enough. So here's my question to you guys. With that type of story being ran in my mind, in my heart, in my central nervous system, what type of feelings do you think I felt every time that I thought about that story? What type of feelings do you think I felt? What type of feelings would you feel? Maybe some of you guys can relate with that story. Maybe some of you guys weren't raised by both parents, so you can relate with that. Right? Definitely negative ones. Anger, sadness, feeling like a loser, unworthy, not good enough, doesn't matter what I do. And I'm always seeking my father's approval for things because he left my life. And I'm always looking externally for that validation. Exactly, Eric. Feeling lonely. Please, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, whether we know it or not, sometimes things like that happen to us, and we project that feeling onto other relationships. And we don't realize we're doing it because we're not even aware of it. That was that literally
Absolutely.
Situation for the beginning of our relationship.
100%.
Whenever I would go to correct him, he would trigger, I'm not good enough because his mom did that. And I'm like, I'm not your mom. Like, I'm just trying to help.
That story was running so deep inside of me that it affected every single relationship that I had. Okay. So my question to you right now is this: what is your story? What story are you telling yourself? Because we all have them. What is that story? Write it down. Let's actually take a couple of minutes and do this. We don't want to let this moment pass and just, you're not here just for more content. You could have gone to YouTube for that, right? Like, let's actually work on this right now. What is a story that you've been telling yourself that has been limiting you from more fulfillment, more happiness, more peace, more success, more joy in your life, more love? Write that down. We're going to take 90 seconds, okay? What is a story that is not serving you? Every time you think about that story, in a sentence or two, in simple terms, what is a story that you've been telling yourself subconsciously
This is the first time you've thought about this, because I know, I mean, it hasn't been long since we even started going deep like this. You might start thinking, oh my gosh, there's this negative feeling towards this person. There's this negative feeling towards this situation. They might just be piling out because now you're aware of it, which is huge. Yeah. So huge. Not smart enough, not feeling good enough. That is one of the biggest feelings I feel like all humans have in common. I'm not enough.
Absolutely.
One way or another, it goes down to that same
And if
feeling.
you already know that, right? If you already know the story, or if you already know what it is that you've been telling yourself, like as an example, thank you for sharing with us that I'm not good enough to become somebody. Ask if you already have that, if you already know what it is that you've been telling yourself, stop and think, what was the root? What was the seed that started that story? And you might not be able to come up with that right away. Maybe you do. Maybe you remember vividly or specifically a time in your past that X, Y, and Z happened, or someone told you that you are not good enough. You're never going to be good enough. And then boom, that becomes the, what is that root?
And when you look for the root, your mind is going to want to point to some person. It's that person's fault. It's that situation's fault.
Yeah.
Go
absolutely.
to a fact. Like the fact of Nick's story is that his dad left him.
Right.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But he's not looking at it from like
right.
a lens of like hurt anymore. He's just looking at it for what it is.
That's right. The fact, something happened that triggered me to write that story. So what was it that what was the fact? What was the event that started that for you? Another 30 seconds. Let's do some thinking. I think most of us are such high achievers that we don't invest enough time in stopping and thinking throughout the day. So let's just stop and think for 30 seconds here. What was the event that started that? If you're just joining us, here's a question for you to think about after this call. What is a story that I've been telling myself that has been limiting me? What is a story that I've been telling myself that has been limiting me? That story can be conscious or subconscious. And what feeling does it bring to you? So, okay, drop a me in the chat if you have that, if you actually can think of one. Because if this is the very first time you're thinking about this, maybe you literally can't even come up with one. And that's okay if that's you. We encourage you to do some more thinking outside of this call. If that's where you find yourself. If you cannot think of a story, you need to do a little bit more digging. Okay? Who else? Getting yelled at and embarrassed in front of friends by my dad for not being good enough. Messing up in sports. Starting to realize that he just had a high standard for me and saw greatness. Absolutely, bro. That's beautiful. What a beautiful story that you're rewriting, right? Like that's why we're here. Anyone else? Is anyone else here? Did anyone else find that story for themselves? Me? Okay, we got 3-4 people so far. Anyone else? Yeah, okay, we got another one here. Got you, Mike. Good stuff. Anyone else? Okay, 5 people, 6 people. Awesome, guys. Awesome. And again, right, we're just scratching the surface. And hopefully you guys are seeing the value in this, because it is only through facing these stories and facing the pain that we're able to come on the other side, right? There's no peace without war. We must go through the darkness so we can see the light. So it's important that we go inward, find out these stories, and then we're able to rewrite them.
I just had a thought when you said that. And I was actually thinking about it before, so I'm glad you went here. But adults are literally giant children. We take all these connections that we make up to age 7 or 8, and unless we go deep, like you just said, they stick with us forever. And we don't even know it unless we think about it. So unless we intentionally rewrite it, which is what we're about to do, we're about to come full circle, then our past is going to be our future.
Absolutely.
You know, and that limits us. That's a scary thought.
100%. 100%. So what we're doing right now, by the way, I just want to congratulate you guys, because right now we are the 2% that are actually consciously thinking, right? 98% of people are ran by fear. 2% are ran by faith, and they do conscious thinking. They're thinking for themselves, right? So that's exactly what we're doing here. So, hey, you should be proud of yourself there. Why don't you share an example of yours? What is a story?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm from North Carolina originally, but my dad has been in the Air Force for 34 years. So my whole life I moved around everywhere. Like bing, 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 like every 1 to 4 years. And so I feel like a big perception that I could have looked through and continue to look through my whole life. I feel like I worked through it a few years ago, luckily, but some people don't. And it could have held me back, oh my gosh, up to this day, is it's so hard to make friends. Oh my gosh, I move all the time. Oh, I'm always a new person. Oh, I always got to go to school. Oh, life is just so hard. And it was challenging at times. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy. But if I keep looking through that lens of like, oh, this is hard, like I'm never going to meet people and have them in my life long term because I'm always moving and this and that. And like, I mean, it is hard as a kid when you look and everyone has friends that they were raised with, you know, and then you're, hi, it's me. And girls are intimidated by you because you're cute, and guys, they liked you until you didn't like them. And then and then it just stops there, you know, then they judge you that way. So, and now I understand, because that was the perception growing up, and that was something I worked through, like I said. Now I understand that, yeah, you know, life is hard for everyone. Everyone has their challenges. However, what did that do for me? Instead of looking at like my life, like moving, constantly growing, like, or going all over, instead of looking at that as like hard, oh my gosh, I have it so hard compared to some people, I need to look at that as like, you know what? I got to move and travel and meet people from all over and do things that like not many people even do. There's a good percentage of people that live in the same town their whole life. And I lived in 7 states. I went to 2 elementary schools, 3 middle, and 3 high schools.
So what's a better story?
Better story is that this is happening for me. And that allowed me to become more open-minded, meet people all over. Now I have friends all over. Like that is the reality that I look into now. Now I feel good about it. I didn't used to feel good about it. I used to be like, oh my gosh, like when is this over? Like I'm just ready to stop moving and stay still. And now I'm doing that, but I look back and I'm grateful for it, because I would not be the same person I am today, you know?
That's huge. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think a lot of us have different stories that can even be related to each other. And I'll also, just to finish the story that I was able to rewrite very recently in my life with my dad leaving, I was able to rewrite the story that, you know what? My dad left my life when I was 2 because he was finding himself in life. And my mom did a fantastic job. She held me to high standards because she saw my true potential. And I'm so grateful for her. And now me and my dad have an amazing relationship. And he actually introduced me several years ago to my real father who's in heaven. And I am so grateful for that. Like that change in story changed everything for me. So let's do that right now. You guys wrote down the story, right? Why don't we rewrite that story? So right now is when we're able to be creators, and you get to actually take a moment, rewrite that story that has been haunting you, or that has haunted you or limited you. And you get to rewrite that story from a positive perspective, just like Haley said, instead of why did that happen to me? What was it trying to teach you? And find the beauty in that fact and in that event and in what happened, and physically write a new story that will lead you to a better result in the future and a better feeling. So let's take a minute here and let's do that. What is a better story that gets you excited when you read it? that brings a smile to your face when you read it. Even if it seems a little bit far-fetched, even if it seems like you're just coming up with a lie, rewrite the story. Rewrite the story.
It's just shifting the perspective, shifting the lens, switching out the old lens for a new lens. God allows us to go through things so we will grow. But if we don't look at it with that perspective, we're always going to be upset. It's that victim mentality to the victor mentality.
That's right. What is that story? Write it down. Thank you guys for participating. Is that story? Take another 30 seconds here. Drop a 3 in the chat if you're able to write a new story for yourself. I know some of you guys are still writing.
What is this trying to teach me? Lessons are blessings. We can't grow without learning. We can't learn without being uncomfortable. Therefore, being uncomfortable is a blessing.
Yeah.
We just got to connect the dots.
Our thoughts equals our perceptions, and our perception is the reality in the eye of the beholder. So perception is reality in the eye of the beholder. And we encourage you guys to keep working on that story. We're doing that ourselves, by the way. We are actually rewriting our stories every single day. So we're right there with you. And I have lots of them. I don't know if you can relate with me. I got lots of stories that I'm rewriting. I got lots of stories that I borrowed from people. I borrowed from them. They aren't even my stories. I'm rewriting that. And then the moment that we do that, we are actually creating our future. We're creating our design lives.
We start by looking back and changing the things of our past. And then once we get in that habit of looking through that perspective of what is this trying to teach me? The next time something bad happens or uncomfortable happens, we need to start applying it. Let's see how quick we can do it. Each time it happens, it gets shorter time frame to switch over to that perspective. You know, we're still human. But just like anything, it takes practice and intentionality.
Yes. Drop a 3 in the chat if you gained some value tonight, guys. I think this is just enough, you know. We could keep going, but I believe that this is enough to get us thinking. And that's the goal. That was our goal here, to get us thinking, get us looking backwards, get us to do some self-reflection, do some studying of ourselves day by day. We love you guys.
Every way.
Yes.
Getting better.
Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us. We're going to stick around for another 10 minutes. If you're watching a recording, God bless you. And we'll see you.